Next Thursday for our next meeting, I know we're falling a little bit out of line for our curriculum, but the next topic for the curriculum will be the week after. But next Thursday, we're going to be doing a panel session, same time as today, in Bryan 130. We have already so far this Chief Investment Officer of the most active VC in the Southeast, Ryan Whittemore, this guy right here. We have, you guys have probably seen these people, 161 across campus, very prominent VC in Gainesville and the North Florida region. Starting to spring up now, have some pretty good investments. This is Pablo Castellanos, he's the founding partner of 161, or one of the founding partners. He's also going to be a guest speaker. And then this is Mark, what's his last name?
Halberstein.
Mark Halberstein. So far, this guy has raised $11 million in his startup based in Miami. Do you have any info on the startup?
So I don't know that much details. It's called Simple Night, and I believe it's like a data software company. I'm not sure the details on it, but what he's starting up is like becoming pretty big. So yeah.
We're trying to explode this panel session. If you guys tell your friends, like, it's going to be a good networking session, a good point for your own personal careers to ask some questions that you guys might be curious about directly from a VC or from an entrepreneur himself. We're also trying to get one more guest speaker, but we're still waiting on confirmation. But we're going to send out a bunch of marketing materials very soon. But the dress code, at least for everybody who's coming to represent the club, please come business casual. Do not come with the way that we're all dressed tonight. We're trying to look professional for our guests. Ryan Whittemore has presented and spoke at UF before. He's used to UF students, so he's very receptive to any questions you guys might have. So is Pablo. I'm not too familiar with Mark, but he's a UF alumni, and I'm sure that he's a nice guy too. So. Yeah.
And one thing I want to add to that real quick, it's not just going to be like how other clubs do with the presentation on Zoom, where you just listen to the guy spiel about something. Like, this is going to be like an active dialogue where your guys are able to ask questions. We're going to create like an online Google form so everyone can ask them what they want. Like, it is going to be relevant to us, and like there are UF students who are alumni now, so it's going to be very relevant, and I think it'll be very beneficial for you guys to be there.
Okay. What else? Oh yeah, Carl.
Oh yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Carl. I'm the leader for FinTech, and we're going to Tablet to see Citibank on Monday. I apologize. We're opening it up to VC, so if anyone wants to come, we're going to go there and see a couple of executives and a couple of MDs, particularly equity trading. We're going to need to meet the MDs and on the technical side and on the business side. So if you're interested, I'm going to post the interest form on GroupMe.
On our GroupMe?
Yeah.
Okay, so is everybody here in our GroupMe? If you're not, raise your hand real quick, just want to gauge. Okay, it's not too many people, but before you guys leave, let us know so we can get you on the GroupMe.
Where was that?
Tablet.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions there? Or anything thus far? Okay. Now, who here is an analyst or a PM on a team right now for the analyst program? Raise your hands, like high, so I can see. Can we get a quick count? Okay, leave your hands up if you're on a team right now. Like you're working directly on a project, right? Okay. And then raise your hand if you're a generalist. Or like you're not on a team right now. Okay, those of you who are generalists, stay after we're done with the lecture. We need to go over the generalist program, what you guys will be doing. Okay. So if you guys are new here, this is pretty much what we try to do every meeting, provide transparency to even all the general members who come. On the left, or yeah, your left is the completed side. This is everything we've done thus far as an organization for the past year, including some other minor things, but just these are the material things. This is everything we have in progress so far. Project Horizon. We like to use discrete names for the projects that we're on because most of the nature of these engagements that we have with these companies is discrete. So only the people on the team actually know the names, at least to my knowledge. And then Project KBD is actually something that me and Carl are working on, and Vinay. And then we're also hosting a venture capital competition next semester, and we're actually going to be competing in it. We're on that later. But and then yeah, the VCP panel. And then we have a small business case competition next semester. If you guys are interested in that one, you can talk to Avi. But still nothing planned out for that yet.
All right, so for our current event discussion today, we have the Federal Open Market Committee. So 2 days ago, they went over and they decided to keep interest rates at 5.25%. This is the second consecutive meeting where they've held that steady, rather than raising the rates to try to further slow down interest at a faster rate, or releasing those rates for more economic growth, or lowering those rates for that higher economic growth. And they're taking this cautious strategy to not further rate hikes amid decreasing inflation and a growing economy. Why would the Fed follow the expectations of the market? So if there's a lot of market analysts that are expecting the Fed to keep rates steady or raise them or lower them, why would they adhere to these analysts? Does anyone have any ideas? Jackson, got anything?
You know, I think I'll leave it open to everyone else here.
Okay. They don't want to create panic.
So yeah, so the market will, since they see the precursors and the things that they're expecting, the market will already auto-adjust to that expectation. So if they continue to raise the rates, people will freak out and believe that the inflation, like the Fed might know something that they don't, and the inflation could continue to rise drastically. So they're trying to take a preventative action against that, or if they decrease the rates, then the market will expect that the inflation, it's just different than their expectations, so the market will be more volatile, where it's already set due to the expectations. And then Chair Jeremy Powell acknowledged this uncertain inflation Jerome acknowledged this uncertainty in the inflation trajectory and the financial distress in the future. And the likelihood of potential rate cuts is now advancing, and they're increasing that likelihood in the future. And then where do the implications on the entire economy come from with the decisions that the Fed makes? So how does the increase or decrease in the market rates really change the entire economy, eventually leading to the change in the inflation rate?
I mean, inflation, interest rates make affect the cost of borrowing. So if they increase the interest rates, then spending will cool. If the interest rates go up, then if interest rates go up, spending will cool. If interest rates go down, then spending will increase. So I think, especially when it pertains with what he's saying, I think the implication that he's giving is, in order to avoid a recession, there's a potential chance that they'll reduce the interest rates. Well, that's a highly more likely probability because we're starting to see spending sort of stagnate a little bit.
Yeah, so that's why we would see the future cut. So it's increasing the cost of money. So in the future, you're looking at higher interest rates because banks are looking to buy federal bonds as their backing for a lot of their money that they're loaning out. So this overnight rate that banks have is dedicated or set by the Federal Open Market Committee. And then the bond market also goes up and down with the Federal Open Market rate. So when this cost of money increases, then there's going to be less investing and less spending. And that's why if this spending continues to teeter and not significantly increase to help the growth of the economy, then they'll lower the rates to allow for that spending to increase, investment and new businesses to continue to increase.
You guys know what this means for private equity, for venture capital? If interest rates go down?
If you have lowered interest rates, you're just getting it, so then every VC and PE firms getting more wanting to invest at with higher regards, with a higher risk tolerance, risk appetite. You might as well pay lower cost of borrowing. You might as well just play the game more per se.
Do you guys remember what dry powder is from last week?
Is it money you have on hand?
Yeah, essentially. All that dry powder that's parked in private equity and venture capital right now, it isn't getting deployed as well as it would be if interest rates were lower. So if more capital is easily available for private equity companies and venture capital companies, you're going to see this dry powder start getting deployed alongside debt, which is cheaper if it goes down. So pretty soon, we're seeing interest rates up here, and then pretty soon you need to look out for the yield curve That's something you always need, as a finance major, business major, even engineering, if you're gonna start your own company one day. You need to look at the time period in which a good time to start a company is. Right now, it's pretty difficult to raise capital. But the moment that yield curve starts going down and interest rates are lowered, then you're gonna start seeing IPO here, IPO there. Private equity firm bought out this company, this and that. So that's the implications of bringing it all back to venture capital and entrepreneurship. Truly.
Thank you both for that. Yeah. Yeah, so today we're talking about entrepreneurship, coming off of last week's LDOs. As always, thank you all for being here. So, as everyone mentioned, we have a panel, industry professionals coming in next week. So, unsure as to what's going to happen with asset allocation portfolio management and the Federal Reserve. We'll probably try and combine it or maybe find time to do an extra meeting. And we do have kind of a lot to go through today. So, if we get over 7, you guys just want to walk out, feel free to do so, unless you're generalists, you have to stay. But we're just going to jump right in here. Also, click it out.
Click on the screen.
Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to go over some economics 101. And you might know the answer to this question if you guys have taken macro before. What are the 4 factors for reduction used to produce goods and services? Anyone have any idea?
I know one's labor.
Yeah.
Capital.
Yeah. What else?
Material.
Well, you're on the right track. Yeah.
Capital and entrepreneurship.
We're missing one. But we're going to go a little quickly because we have a lot to get through, so that's good enough. It's land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So as we go into learning this topic of entrepreneurship, it's important to keep in mind that it's not really like this nebulous qualitative topic. It's a basic part of the economy. It's a basic part of why we're able to, why all the technology that we're using here actually exists. Because land, labor, and capital can't do anything. It can't combine to make anything with utility. It can't combine to make anything useful without this 4th quality here, which is entrepreneurship, which is a skill. And in essence, from an economic perspective, entrepreneurship is the ability to combine land, labor, and capital to produce a good or service. And it's a combination of all 4 of these factors that we get to live the lives that we live every day.
You can see that real growth within the economy driven by the new businesses that are created and the new investment opportunities within that.
Right.
So what is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is the activity of setting up a business or businesses, taking on financial risk in the hope of profit, so hoping to grow their company to new heights. With private equity and VC, we're seeing this start from the earlier stages, VC being the seed and the pre-seed stages. And an entrepreneur is the individual that creates this new enterprise and bears those risks and really sees a future with this new company or idea that they have. Some of the key terms that we're going to be going over today is business model, so the business model of the company where they see they're going to make profit, the innovation of the company, how they can evolve and create an amazing product, the disruption within their market, so how they're able to disrupt their market and really take a stance within the market and learn to sell their market within or sell their product within their niche market. The market being their consumer base, the value proposition being the value that they're adding with this product and where they can see it growing, and then the segment being that niche market area that they're looking for.
Okay, so we have 4 topics to go over today as we're into entrepreneurship. First, we're going to go over the entrepreneurial method. Then we're going to talk about business models. Then we're going to talk about competitive advantage, and then we're going to talk about the product life cycle. And it's important to keep in mind as we go through some of these topics that entrepreneurship is very much an art, and academics have tried to kind of use science by it, really make a science out of it. So there's a bunch of frameworks and kind of models and ways that we look to understand entrepreneurship that we're going to teach, but really it's an art, and nothing here is kind of the step-by-step, this is how you do it. It's more, this is what has been observed, and these are some models that are helpful for us to understand how this process works. So there's 2 frameworks for the entrepreneurial method. The first one is the entrepreneurial method. This is also called the effectuation process. The first step is going to be setting goals based on means, And by means, we mean all the resources available to an individual, right? So I'm gonna set an entrepreneurial goal. The first thing I need to look at is, what are my restraints? Means aren't just financial, although your financial means is a large part of the means when you're looking at it in this step. Means could also be the knowledge that you have at your disposal, right? So when Bill Gates or Steve Jobs started their tech companies, they both just didn't start off with seed money. They had significant expertise in the field that they were trying to create a product in. The second thing you need to do is understand your affordable costs. Once you know your means, you know the resources you have at your disposal, you need to understand what you can afford to lose. And the other resource is going to be time, and there's opportunity costs. How could you be using your time pursuing something else versus the venture that you're pursuing? The third thing you're going to do is enroll and create partnerships. This is the process of finding a business partner. This is the process of finding investors. Eventually, this is the process of finding employees and other businesses that you're going to collaborate with to deliver your end service or product. And then fourth, you're going to actualize your end goal, which is founding the company. Now, the process is identify the opportunity. We're going to talk about opportunity recognition. Develop the concept. So develop the concept of what it is that you're trying to do, the product or service that you're trying to sell. Determine and acquire the required resources, and implement and manage the business. So this is just more detail into that effectuation process that I'm talking about. Just important to understand this general kind of the feedback loop here as you go through means, understanding what resources you have at your disposal, and this kind of hones into your network, which is a resource. Based on your means, what can you do? What commitments can you get from other stakeholders? What goals can you set based on your means and the means that you get as you bring more people into the firm? And then eventually, through your product or service, you're trying to create changes in the environment. That's all possible through this process. Know what resources you have, pulling resources, getting people together, and actually actualizing on your goals.
That goes back to utilizing the land, the labor, and your capital to best advantageously for your company. So refining entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial process is opportunity driven. So this is kind of the science that they've tried to derive from the different entrepreneurs and the different people that have started businesses and what they have in common. So they have commitment, determination, courage. They're driven by opportunity. They're always looking for problems in their own lives to solve them and then eventually make a business off of them. They're looking for that, or they have the tolerance for risk. They're going to take out personal loans, business loans to start this company based on their idea that they believe in. They're okay with the uncertainty, ambiguity of starting their own business, and they're creative with their leadership, and they're kind of innovative with their thinking, and they're able to get people to follow them. So these competencies come with this entrepreneurship mindset, or are hand in hand with it, and they help whenever you're starting a business. So you have the opportunity recognition, opportunity assessment, risk mitigation, communication, guerrilla and bootstrapping skills, focus and adaptation, problem solving, innovation and creation of value, tenacity, leveraging your network, and then maintaining self-efficacy, resilience, and immunity to scrutiny. Does anyone have any questions about any of those or what they mean in terms of the entrepreneurial mind? Or is it pretty, I think it's pretty straightforward. If anyone has any questions, so feel free to ask.
Really, we want to hone in on the emphasis on opportunity. If you take the entrepreneurship class at UF, there's going to be whole chapters dedicated to this process of opportunity recognition. Academics have studied the heck out of what kind of methods and heuristics can you use to recognize good opportunities and act on them. And risk mitigation also being an important skill that all entrepreneurs possess. And this is just one visual that we're going to use to kind of just show kind of the role of the founder here when we think about this process and the ways that the founder has to balance their team, they have to balance the opportunity, and they have to balance the resources at hand. So to refine entrepreneurship further, and entrepreneurship at UF, this is one of my biggest takeaways is like, we typically think of entrepreneurship as like these guys on the right, these really big companies, these unicorn companies that are super disruptive, they're super innovative, they do something really different, they become famous, they have millions of dollars in VC value. But if you look at the framework that we showed earlier in this lecture, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. In order to understand what means you have at your disposal, in order to act on an opportunity, recognize opportunities, get collaborators together. It could be something as simple as, and this is a Gainesville body shop. There's a body shop in Gainesville. The individual who started this company was pulling resources together. He identified an opportunity here in the Gainesville market, and he entrepreneurially started a successful business. The same is true for your local coffee shop and your local pizza parlor. Yeah, these businesses aren't getting VC backing, but it's entrepreneurship nonetheless, and it still follows some of the frameworks that we're going to talk about today that these companies follow as well when they're in their startup phase. The same is true here. So we kind of have a spectrum, kind of going very serious, kind of what you would think a VC would put money into, kind of to not so serious stuff, but when you're little and you make a lemonade stand, that's entrepreneurship as well, and people had to collaborate to make this happen. You got to understand what means you're at your disposal. How could you find a ride to the grocery store? How much ingredients can you get to make the lemonade? And same thing with the hot dog stand. And then we have some companies here, and this is very important because typically think of entrepreneurship as you have to be self-employed and you have to do everything on your own, but really this isn't the case. So we have Bear Stearns is an old investment bank. They no longer exist, but the reason why Bear Stearns is here is because the LBO that modern private equity is based off of was started by two analysts, investment banking analysts at Bear Stearns, who, when they were doing whatever analyst work they had to do, they came up with this idea that they could sell these deals, different funds, where you could acquire companies with a bunch of debt, and they practically pioneered the LBO at their investment bank as analysts. A lot of times you see this at investment banks. When a company comes up with a new product, when a company innovates, there's entrepreneurship going on within that company. So you can apply a lot of these principles when you're actually working for a firm. You don't have to actually do everything on your own. Same thing with sales jobs, especially sales jobs that tend to pay particularly well. And these are software as a service companies like such as Salesforce. Tech sales people at Salesforce, it's not uncommon for them to bring $400,000 a year, but Salesforce isn't telling them what to do. It's a very entrepreneurial job. They have to do everything on their own. They have to come up with their sales process on their own. They have to develop their customer relationships on their own. So entrepreneurship is not relegated to these guys. And that was one of the biggest takeaways from a class that I took. It's very important to keep that in mind. It's really kind of like gratitude. Anyone can be a cook, anyone can be an entrepreneur. But in terms of 5 general steps to actually starting a venture, this is kind of what John and I gathered from a review of the academic literature. Number 1 is idea generation and opportunity recognition, which is what we've gone over. Number 2, you're going to conceptualize your value proposition. You're going to conduct a feasibility assessment. You're going to create a minimum viable product, an identification of a minimum viable segment, and then you're going to actualize your go-to-market strategy, and you're going to iterate. You're going to constantly improve different versions. So what's a customer value proposition? Well, it's the sum of total benefits a firm promises a customer will receive in return for their payment. Describes how your product or service creates value for the customer. And we interact with customer value propositions every day, and we do this equation in our head. Is the money that I'm willing to exchange for this good, is that worth it? Do I want to buy that? Right? And in order for you to ultimately conclude yes, you have to process in your mind, yeah, I'm getting enough benefit from this product, I'm going to give my money for me to buy it. So the customer value proposition on the business side is, what value can we provide that will make the customer rationalize the decision to give us their money? It answers these questions. What value do we deliver to the customer? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? Which customer needs are we satisfying? What bundles of products or services are we willing to offer each customer segment? And one framework that we use to look at this is this customer value proposition matrix, where you're matching your customer profile with your value proposition. So the product or service is going to create gains. It's going to relieve pains. The customer wants to benefit from those gains and wants to feel the relief from those pains. Now, there's certain things that the customer wants done, right? If you want to drink a cup of coffee, the job that you want done here is to get more energized and get the caffeine. So that's what this box corresponds to. Products and services are meant to ultimately satisfy that customer need and get the job done for the customer. And it's typically written out in a statement. Our product and service helps whoever your customer segment is, who wants to do X, Y, and Z by some verb and a pain and increasing a gain, unlike, for instance, your potential competition. And here's some examples of this matrix this canvas being applied. Companies like Uber. We're not going to go through all of these, but when you get an Uber, you want to enjoy your Saturday night, you want to meet your date at 6 p.m. tomorrow, Those are all things that you typically want to do in an Uber. And Uber is going to allow you to do that. Schedule a ride function in a smartphone looking at it. It's the easiest way to schedule a ride. This is kind of hypothetical, but let's say that the game that the customer would want is water amidst every ride. Well, then you match that game when you're trying to design what your product and service is going to be by saying, okay, we're going to put water amidst every car. If for instance, it's a pain, you know that your customers don't like unclean cars, and you're going to design the product that you're going to offer them, the proposition you're going to offer them to buy from you around solving that problem, around mitigating that pain, which is put smell sensors inside the car, let the driver know that the car smells. Same thing with Tesla. We have a defined upper middle class male who's wanting to drive this Tesla and wants to get these gains, mitigate these pains, and he has these certain jobs that he needs done. And Tesla's designing their offering around completing this. And so what you have to take away from this is, in order to design a good value proposition, you have to really know who your customer is. You have to design your product around what the customer needs and what the customer wants. And then there's generic approaches to customer value proposition as well. Kind of different schools of thought in terms of how different startups or different companies might try and capture value. You can differentiate on quality and the things that your service or product actually does. You could engage in cost leadership, and you could be the cheapest at what you do, which would provide value to the customer. You have a focus strategy where you're really honing in on something that's super niche. And you can have a combination strategy where you kind of combine all three. Here's some examples of those. TikTok comes to the scene, they're super differentiated. We're used to scrolling on Instagram, just looking at pictures. Eventually Instagram comes out with videos, but there's really nothing quite like TikTok that enables the content creator to create content like they do. And we're also used to long form content on YouTube. So TikTok really kind of differentiated on the type of content that we could consume, and that's what made them successful. Robinhood comes out while I'm in high school, and they have commission-free trades. So before Robinhood came out, you used to actually have to pay a broker money to trade stock. Robinhood comes out and they say, you know what? Trading stock is free. So we're going to provide value to the customer. We're going to convince you to trade on our platform because we're going to be cheaper than the competition. They have a cost leadership strategy. Draft 360. Actually, in this club last year, I did an analysis of Draft 360. It's an example of a focus strategy. So this is a portable camera that takes a 3D array with LiDAR technology of an apartment complex or single-family home. So when you go and you're trying to lease up a home, or you go and you're trying to lease an apartment, and you can actually do like a 3D walkthrough online, that's enabled by this kind of technology. Right? Draft 360 is going to have a focus strategy because that's a super niche market that they're going to try to go after. Then you're going to have a combination strategy. And so these are different models of Tesla that have come out over the years, and you can see them. They're different in terms of the way that they look, and they're also drastically different in terms of their price point. So Tesla might have started out with a differentiated strategy, coming out with the Model S, and it's a very, very different car. If you've ever been in Tesla, you can tell it's a very differentiated experience in driving a typical gasoline car. And over the years, they've kind of said, okay, we're going to do Model 3. We're going to try to pursue some cost leadership in terms of penetrating this EV market. Okay, cool. So next we're going to talk about the feasibility assessment.
So here you're looking at the entrepreneurial method and the feasibility assessment. So the level of effort that you're putting into a business is correlated with the believability of your information. So with the level of effort you're putting into your business is the amount of research and development expenses that you're incurring, and the amount that those free products and your MVP are actually coming along. And then if this believability of information is high, then your valuation is going to be higher.
Right, and look at some of these stages here, where the idea is that you invest proportional to the information that you have and whether or not your product is actually gaining any traction, right? So you're going to have a minimum viable product. I mean, by the time you're at the interview process, you're deciding if you want to even make your MVP. If you determine, like, I think I know what my customer needs are. I think I can design a good customer value proposition around this. You can kind of go and make a prototype, and you actually test that hypothesis. If the prototype is successful within the market, which we're going to talk about, you launch your live product business. But it's the idea that the level of effort is proportional to kind of where you are in the process of understanding, is there an actual need for my product? Does the market actually want this?
One of the examples where this was somewhat followed, but it was a complete lie, was Theranos. That if you ever read Bad Blood, the company where they lied about their blood testing technology, and they were able to quote unquote test this MVP that they had while they were actually lying about the testing and taking different, like the actual tests, and then lying about the fingerprint. But this information was highly believed, as the Stanford grad had propped it up to be amazing new technology that would change the world. So their valuation was very high, and then when this believability of information crashed, when they realized that this product was false, the company went bankrupt and she's now in jail.
Okay, so 5 general steps to starting a venture. 3, do the feasibility assessment. We're going to create MVP and identification of MVPs, right? So let's look at this again. You have your customer value proposition. You've done a bunch of testing on it. And then you're ready to get to the next level and actually design a prototype. And that's where we are here. So you want to design a minimum viable product. Minimum viable product is an early version of a product that meets the minimum necessary requirements for use, but can be improved in the future after customer feedback. So this is kind of communicated in different ways. Different companies will release like a beta version. You'll see restaurants sometimes do like a soft launch. I'm going to soft launch and just make sure that we get all the kinks out. It's a prototype. It's kind of like an early access version of a product. The idea is to match your minimum viable product with a minimum viable segment. So the portion of your target market that is small enough that you can target and dominate it quickly, but big enough to let you validate your business model. So this is really another way to word this is the minimum viable product is the minimum form of the product that you can deliver your value proposition on. And the minimum viable segment is the minimum cross-section of your target market that you can serve that can accept that value proposition. You're kind of clear with the dynamic between these two. Any questions?
So your MVS is going to be that target market that you're looking for to promote your MVP and really market your MVP towards, because that's where you're expecting the first level of sales to be from. So whenever you're looking for this, you're trying to make sure that you have the problem market fit for your MVS, for that niche market that you're looking for, and then you're looking to build, measure, and learn from this market group, and then eventually expand to larger and larger market groups, growing your market share from that niche original market with your minimum viable product.
Right. So the minimum viable product is when you're kind of at this stage when you're trying to determine if you have a product market fit. This is when you kind of realize, okay, what I'm doing is working, what I'm doing is not working, and this is the stage of startup where you can make changes and you can operate quickly, right? That's the purpose of this being a minimum viable product and a minimum viable segment. You can make mistakes, you can iterate, you can make a new version, and you can ultimately come to a place where, okay, I've proven that this version of the product meets the needs that this customer segment wants met. And I've shown that there is demand for this product in the market, right? Once we've actually got to the point where we have an MVP, we have an MVS, we know that there's market demand, this is kind of when a VC firm will jump in. This is when you're going to have your first initial sales numbers, when you can say, yeah, look, so we've identified a problem in the market. We have proof that the customer segment, this small cross-section of the customer segment that we've tested this minimum viable product on, actually has a need for this. Now we want to we need some money to take this to the next level, get out of the prototype, get out of the beta phase, get out of early access, and get to the real deal. The next is go-to-market and iteration. This is kind of the idea in this graph here, kind of what I'm talking about. Is you have your total available market, and you have your serviceable available market, and you have your serviceable obtainable markets. This is a total market that can buy your product. This is a total market that, as you are with your product in its early stages, could potentially sell to. But this beachhead here, with this serviceable obtainable market, this is actually who you're going to target. This is actually what your resources at this stage are going to get. And this is kind of a visual demonstration of how this works. Is you want to establish your beachhead. That's your minimum viable segment. And from there, try to slowly conquer the market. And then, in doing so, you demonstrate a product market fit. And kind of from getting to the beachhead all the way down to this quote unquote third wave, from getting from the serviceable obtainable market, what you can do with your resources now, to the serviceable available market, what you can do if you have more resources. That's where you're going to onboard cash, get more collaborators, and get investors, and ultimately get your product and your startup to the next level.
So while you're moving through these levels, you have to improve your product and your marketing. So as you're improving your product, you can find different ways to market it as well to the new consumers that you will be targeting, while taking feedback from the current customers that you have in that niche original serviceable market that you're looking for to grow from there. and use that information to better yourself.
This is from the Harvard Innovation Lab, and this is what kind of Harvard describes as the framework that we should use when we're trying to pencil out and understand how we should be designing our go-to-market strategy. When we're trying to get our product to the market, and penetrate that beachhead. A lot of the emphasis when we're talking about go-to-market is on the marketing and sales cycle, and of course you have the funnel that you're trying to create with your marketing and sales activities, with awareness all the way down to purchasing. You have strategies and tactics, your brand, your position, your social media. You have to consider what channels you're going to be using. How is it you're going to be using a direct-to-consumer channel, or you're going to be using a series of distributors? Channel development management. What partners do you need to onboard? What partners do you need to collaborate with in order to actually get your product or service into customers' hands? Strategic partners falls into that as well, and then your audience. Really a focus on, are we targeting the right segment? Right. This is kind of iterating on your minimum viable segment, understanding, are we going after the group of customers that has the needs that our product can solve, that has the problems that our product can solve, needs our product can satisfy. And this is a go-to-market strategy checklist. We're not going to have time to go through all of these, but see a lot. There's going to be market opportunity. Decide upon the beachhead target for initial market penetration. Identify the decision makers, approvers, recommenders, influence, and snipers. So you can see over the years, there's been, this is that literature I was talking about, observations of how successful firms have completed this process and how we can kind of follow that when we're structuring our own firms and the things that we can do. So that go-to-market stuff is very tactical. Taking a step back, there are a lot of higher-level general entry strategies that a go-to-market will address. These are pioneering, imitative, and adaptive. You want to run through those real quick?
So pioneering is developing a new product, kind of new to making its own market, something that's innovative and really looking to change the world. Where you have the imitative, where you're looking to try to change the market in a way that you can find that cost differentiation and introduce the same basic product with better marketing and a better price point to attract customers and build your customer base that way. And then adaptive is you're capitalizing on current market trends, and you're looking to really identify current market trends before they happen, start a business that'll grow very quickly, but it'll also lose interest very quickly. So you have to continue developing new products that will really catch the market's attention with those different market trends.
Are there any, could you give us any examples?
Yeah. So pioneering, a great example of a pioneering general entry strategy is going to be ChatGPT. It's totally different, it's totally pioneering, something new. It's a new way to solve a problem. It's completely disruptive to the status quo. And like ChatGPT comes on the scene, it changes, kind of dictates what Facebook strategy is, what Google strategy is. How are our search engines going to adapt? And totally disruptive to you're going to ChatGPT and post ChatGPT, kind of like pre-iPhone, post-iPhone is a way to look at the pioneering general entry strategy. Imitative is like, my Uncle Johnny thinks he can make the best pizza in town. He's going to open up a pizza parlor. That's really what imitative is. Because you know there's demand for pizza. Pizza's proven success. You think you can do it a little bit different. You think you can do it a little bit better. And adaptive is kind of the most nebulous one. One example that I would think of when I was making this was kind of like fast fashion. So like you see these Shein and Zara brands coming up, kind of doing something. A lot of the business model of Shein and Zara is really integrating a lot of data about their customers, so they kind of know staying on top of the newest trends. It's kind of a new approach where you're constantly kind of refreshing what your inventory is and staying on top of the newest trends. And the product is somewhat new and sufficiently different, although it's still not a completely new thing. So it's kind of an adaptive strategy. You can see that.
Could an adaptive one also be like energy? So maybe like solar energy or nuclear energy that's capitalizing on the market trends of like renewable energy.
Absolutely, I think that's an amazing example.
I think there's the correlation between the two, because you also see some pioneering when you look at nuclear energy, because that form of energy really hasn't been studied and researched in the last 50 years. So there's a high demand for those nuclear engineers coming in the future. And then you also have some that correlate between pioneering and imitative with companies like Robinhood. It's pioneering in the first way that it allows people to trade directly with the market without those large fees, but it's also imitative because that trading could be done in the past.
So we're going to talk about business models. So the business model describes how a firm creates, delivers, and captures value for its customers. Answers the following questions. How will a firm create value? For whom will a firm create value? What is the firm's internal source of advantage? How will the firm differentiate itself? How will the firm make money? And what is the scope and size of the entrepreneurial ambition? Well, what is the size of this operation? We want to hone in on the fact that entrepreneurship and value creation are inseparable, and you don't have successful entrepreneurship unless you're actually creating value. And that's the entire idea behind a transaction that I walked us through at the beginning. Is we have to the point of a successful business model and the way that the way you structure the business model is to justify in the customer's mind that they're benefiting from exchanging their cash, which is a store of value, for whatever benefit that you're giving them. And this is called the business model canvas. And again, if you take an entrepreneurship class at UF, you're going to learn all about these different parts of the canvas. But it's a good framework if you're trying to understand what are the different components of a business model, and kind of with this kind of like wide array sport kind of way, you can visually see the connections between all of these different components of a business model and how they work together. The first is going to be your customer segments. What are the cross sections of your target market that you're going to target? Because each customer segment, the idea is, the reason why they're segment is because they have a common denominator and they have similar needs. Two is your value proposition, which we already went over. What value do you say that the customer is going to get from buying your product? Third is channels, how you're going to actually reach them. Fourth is customer relationships. What relationship does your firm have with your customers? An example of this is real estate agents, realtor shops need strong customer relationships with they need to maintain strong relationships with their customers. Another example of this would be like wealth management, with your clients that you need to maintain relationships with. You can also think of, for instance, Walmart, kind of the way that Walmart might structure their business model. People that they have at the cash register might not necessarily need to put it, it's a different approach to customer relationships than say something that's a lot more client facing. 5 is your revenue streams, how are you actually generating revenue. 6 is your resources, what resources does your firm have to deploy in order to act on their value proposition, deliver that value. 7 is your activities, so what does your firm actually do. 8 is your partners, so who does your firm collaborate with in order to deliver on its value proposition. And 9 is the cost, so what's the cost structure of the firm. So kind of similar to the value proposition model. We're not going to go through all these, but we'll go through a few so you guys have a chance to look at this. For Qualcomm, it's a US-based manufacturer of microprocessors. The customer segments are mobile device manufacturers, wireless carriers, internet device manufacturers, and any device that's connected to the internet needs to use Qualcomm, and automation networking. Your channels are direct sales, they use distributors, they use wireless carriers. Customers, through their customer relationships is they try to maintain a high standard quality with their customers, and that's what they're using to kind of say, okay, with our customer relationship, we want the customer, when they think of Qualcomm, we want them to think of quality. It's kind of what that means. Their value proposition is different for each of the customer segments, which makes sense. That's the point of a value proposition. That's the part of segment. That's the point of segmenting. Then you have your key partners, key activities, cost structure, revenue streams. And we see similar simplified versions of this canvas being applied to Zara and Netflix, where Netflix doesn't necessarily have Bobby's an upper middle income male making $150,000 to $200,000 a year. Netflix is very mass market, right? And you're going to structure your business model around serving that. It's a self-service platform, so that's the relationship they have with Netflix. You're not getting on the phone with Netflix every time you want to watch a movie. Your channel's website, app store, affiliate partners. Revenue streams through subscriptions, their cost in-house content production as they produce their Netflix originals. You have your key partners, activities, key resources. Zara's customer segments. And this really isn't, I'm sure that people behind Zara that are actually designing a strategy or segmenting further business, but their value proposition is fashion clothes, accessories, great e-commerce experience. If you look at Zara's strategy, this is a big part of what they do is the e-commerce experience and actually how they get the data that they use to stock the stores for fast fashion, as I mentioned. Any questions on this business model canvas and kind of the way that these all work together? Okay, cool.
So this can also be broken down from upper level executives to more lower level managers. So they're going to see their own business models at the high level versus different business models for different locations or different specific parts of a company and the way that they're operating. So it can be broken down further than the high scope view for managers to more closely interact and look into their company.
We're not going to go through this, kind of go through each one, but I want you to visually kind of see how these are actually like used in practice and how you can apply, trying to understand your business model through these different boxes. One of the ways is just drawing relationships between the different components of your business model and trying to understand how they work. And so there's literature about kind of the different relationships that a firm could deploy using these different categories. Like for instance, here they're describing the bait and hook, which is when you want to get customer, you want to penetrate by having your price down low, but then have some sort of like recurring subscription costs. So this is like the classic, the printer's cheaper than the printer ink thing, but they make you buy the printer, so you buy the ink. This is what this bait and hook is describing here. You can see this is describing Google's main revenue streams, drawing relationships between these different components, and you can also use it to contrast changes in a business model as a company adjusts their strategy. We're just talking about a book publishing website, their old business model, how they've improved their new model. So it's a method for understanding this process. It's important for you to, as an entrepreneur, to map out what your business model is going to look like, and this is a helpful framework for you to do that. Next, we're going to talk about competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is the way a firm produces goods or delivers services better than its competitors. So when you kind of have demonstrated your product market fit and you have your initial VC funding, really to get to the next level, you want to demonstrate that, you know, as you scale, as you get more customers, this company, this firm has significant levels of competitive advantage. You can perform something better than your competitors, and that should be very apparent. And competitive advantage can come from any part of the business model. This is a simplified business model. These are simplified business model components. Everything from the business model canvas can fit into these 4 categories. So looking at customers, we're going to look at the competitor. We're going to kind of look at how different companies have used these different components to establish competitive advantage. Look at customers. Like raise your hand if you at Starbucks in the past week. Raise them high. Raise them high. Yeah, that's a lot of us. That's a lot of us. Starbucks has a lot of brand equity and customer loyalty, and you kind of see this thing, kind of the sentiment expressed online, where people kind of like, I don't know why I keep spending all this money on Starbucks, but I can't stop doing it. Kind of, you know, Starbucks' business model is selling $5, $6 cups of coffee. So the Starbucks brand in the customer's mind has a lot of value here, say, as opposed to your local coffee shop or as opposed to Dunkin' Donuts. So that's a source of competitive advantage for them because relative to their competitors, Starbucks has this immense brand equity where they can charge these insane prices for coffee. You have offering. What are you actually offering? This is your customer value proposition. We can think about Publix's shopping experience versus Walmart and how that offer is totally different. And how a lot of the reason for going to Publix as opposed to Walmart, despite the fact that Walmart might have lower prices, is it's a nicer experience going to Publix. The employees are nicer, the stores are cleaner, albeit you pay a little bit of a premium for that. Financial viability, Alphabet's ability to sell personalized ads with user data. So think about if you want to try to compete with Alphabet, which is Google. There's no company on earth right now that could have the amount of data that Google has at its disposal. That's why they provide us with Google Docs and Gmail and YouTube and all these free services, because they collect our data and they're able to, with Google AdWords, sell ads to advertisers that are very targeted. So these ads are very effective. And that's their business model. But it's taken years for Google to build up this audience that they can actually use to justify to advertisers. Yeah, advertise our platform because we have literally billions of people using it. That's a huge source of competitive advantage that not a lot of companies can imitate. And then you have infrastructure. Great example of this is Amazon's robust supply chain capacity. We order things on Amazon because it's the fastest. And in order for another company to try to be faster than Amazon, that would require a lot of capital costs. There's probably things that Amazon does and they don't tell. So they really have their internal infrastructure. If we go back to the key partners, key activities, they've learned how to deploy and have these all interact very well in order to deliver, in order to establish a competitive advantage. And all these firms I mentioned started out as what you would call startup. So we're almost done here, by the way. 3 frameworks to kind of understand competitive advantage through that you're going to go through very heavily in the Warrington curriculum. First one is SWOT analysis. This framework used to evaluate a company's competitive position to develop strategic planning. You're just looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But it's a really good point check to kind of understand where you are in the competitive atmosphere at a single point in time. SWOT analysis is the framework. I'll go through that, but this is an example of SWOT analysis for an e-commerce company. So this is a grocery delivery company, and they're kind of doing a spot check, looking at their strengths, their high quality foods that they deliver. They have over 200 drivers. Their weaknesses, they realize they're self-aware of the fact that they're costly, no monthly subscription options or scale payment arrangements, so they're missing out on potential revenue generators, opportunities. They could optimize their app. They could attract wider target audience. They could do search engine optimization to generate more customers. And then threats. Could operate at a loss to drive away competition. So a lot of what you're doing here is trying to see, okay, what can we do as a startup? What can we do to pivot? Where are we now? What can we do to change? And a lot of the jobs that you're going to do, a lot of the job that the VC is going to navigate the startup through this process. Next, you have VREO analysis. It's a framework used to measure a company's level of competitive advantage. Do you want to go through this, Joe? Okay. So, is the resource or capability of the firm valuable? No, then you're at competitive disadvantage. And that's kind of the first idea of whether or not you have competitive advantage is invaluable. If it's not, then you're fresh out of luck. Is it rare? If it's valuable and rare, then you have competitive parity. So you're kind of, what it's saying is, you're just as competitive as another firm. You don't necessarily have an advantage, but you don't have a disadvantage. If it's valuable, rare, and imitatable, you have temporary competitive advantage. Because if it's imitatable, you have competitive advantage up until someone imitates you, right? If it's valuable, rare, imitatable, not imitatable, and organized, then you have sustained competitive advantage. Even if you're valuable, rare, and imitatable, if you're not organized, you can't use competitive advantage because you can't actually kind of reap the benefits of the competitive advantage.
And then you have Porter's 5 forces model. So this is where you're looking at the differences in your market and how much of this competitive advantage that you have sustained and that you can see for the future. So it's just another metric that can be measured by. So it's the threat of new entrants, how hard is it to enter the market, how much capital is needed to enter this market, threat of substitutes, if something is in the market, are they able to lower their cost and really make it cheaper for their customers. And then that brings about the competitive rivalry, your bargaining power of customers, how much are they willing to pay, and then the bargaining power of suppliers, how much are they going to charge you for the products, or for the things that you need to make your product. And this will help you create your wide economic moat when you have strong portions of all of this.
And last, just 2 slides, we have this idea of the product life cycle. And so they've kind of identified, this is like a distribution, kind of like you remember the normal model. So you have kind of certain, very small percent of consumers are innovators, so they're going to kind of jump on a product as soon as it hits the market, as soon as it drops, and they kind of have, there might be what you would call an innovator in tech, and as soon as a new tech innovation comes out, as soon as there's a minimum viable product, these are the people that would be on it. These are the people doing kind of like your first look reviews on YouTube, kind of like that type of crowd. And then kind of once the innovators are jumping on the ship, jumping on the product, with this peak of inflated expectations, there might be a lot of hype surrounding your new innovation. Your early adopters come in, and the hype is kind of starting to die down. And then they've identified kind of this chasm where after the early adopters jump on, you don't get any actual traction with larger markets, right? So you can't scale. So this is at the point where you basically a lame duck startup, because you can't. No one is really latching on the product past the early adopters. You're not growing your market. You're not growing your revenue. You have your slope of enlightenment. If you make it past the chasm, if you're actually able to scale, there's going to be a point where you do scale successfully until things kind of drop off. Then you have your plateau productivity, and then the people that latch on at the end are what they would call the laggards. And kind of visually, does anyone remember Google Glass? Raise your hand if you remember Google Glass. Yeah, so I remember being in elementary school and middle school, and this was kind of, there's a lot of hype surrounding Google Glass. We saw these things on YouTube kind of be like a hologram, like Iron Man or something, but they never caught on. So this is the trough of disillusionment, where the innovators jumped on, and the reason why we know about it is because innovators bought the product and used the product and generated a lot of hype about it. Early adopters might have jumped on, but it didn't actually latch on. It didn't actually go mass market. It didn't actually have that wide consumer appeal. There wasn't enough of a value that it provided to people to justify them buying it. Kind of something that I'm iffy about is the future of VR headsets, and kind of argue that right now they're in the trap of disillusionment. they might have there might be a lot more people adopting it, but I think the hype has more or less died down for VR headsets. So I think we're kind of going to start to see whether or not those are going to latch on or kind of go the way of Google Glass as another failed cool tech product.
Or if it transforms into Apple's augmented reality glasses and more products like that. Just kind of the continued evolution of that type of product.
Right, and then we have this example of kind of what Tesla has done with the Model S through the Model 3, which is kind of an example of kind of getting through the chasm and kind of changing your value proposition to where you can actually get some type of mass market appeal and grow your market and grow your revenue, grow your market share. And they've done that successfully by coming out, okay, we have the Model S, we're going to go after the innovators and the early adopters, we're going to go after our beachhead market. This is the product that, this product serves the needs of the customers that they want to use to penetrate the market and actually introduce their product. Then as we kind of go through it here, to kind of appeal to a lot of these people that are jumping on later, to kind of, as they grow the market, as they want to grow revenue, they want to enter new customer segments, they're going to have changing needs, and that's where you see the Model 3 having different price point, different set of features than the Model S. That's entrepreneurship. Please come up if you have any questions. As always, thank you for being here. Generalists.